Well, good morning. Welcome to Campus Safety 101. I'm your Emergency Management Director. My name's Jeff Gravitt. I've been here for about 3.5 years now, and we've done a lot of work in that amount of time to try and really sharpen the point of the spear on how we go about campus safety. I've got some partners in the presentation today. Jesse Buchanan from our University Police Department will be speaking to us about violent event, active shooter, what you should do in case something like that should occur. We'll go through some of those steps and some of those important things you need to be thinking about since we now live in a day and age that we actually have to train and talk about that stuff. I'm also here with James Barnes from our facilities management team. He works in our electronic shop, does a lot of the cameras, the panic buttons, lockdown switches. We want you to be familiar with how those work and what you can expect if and when you ever have to activate those. And then I'm going to give you a little breakdown on just general campus safety, how we communicate with you, protective actions that are important, and then give you some resources that you can refer back to after this presentation. We're not a giant group. Your questions are important. We'll do everything that we can to answer them. If we don't know, we'll certainly find the answer and get back to you. So, for the next hour, we'll spend some time trying to give you some good information about campus safety. So the first thing that I want to do is introduce you to the Department of Public Safety website. You can get a lot of information for a variety of topics at the website. It goes through things like courtesy escorts, how you contact our dispatch facility and request a campus escort. These campus escorts can do everything from picking you up from one location, taking you to another location if you feel like or are uncomfortable with making that walk. It doesn't matter why you need them, when you need them. What you need to do is call them and use them. They're happy to help. And you can do it one of two ways, right? You can call 801-585-2677, or from any phone on campus, you can just dial 52677. Translates into 5 cops if you don't want to remember 2677. Okay? Kind of a fun little play on numbers. So anyway, good resource for you to know. We put up a lot of good information there. I want to drive you quickly to Emergency Management Services and just show you what is available to you here. So basically, as you look at the top 4 bars, we get into stop the bleed, the big 3 protective actions that we'll talk about today, what you need to do as a student to be more prepared and what we want you to have and why, and then as a staff or faculty member, what the expectation is from us on you to be ready and better prepared, okay? And then as you scroll down a little bit further, you can see a lot of different buttons that will give you information about things that we have available to you. So I won't go into each one of them, but I want to talk to you about 3 that I think are really important for you to know. One is Campus Alert. Campus Alert is the way you're going to find out what's going on campus when we have a major crisis or an emergency. Those alerts come to you via text. So when you sign up as an employee, a student, a faculty member here at the university, you are prompted to provide us with up to 3 cell phone numbers that we can then use to alert you during emergencies. If you don't provide us with that information, guess what? Right, you answered the question correctly. You don't get the alert. Okay? So if you have not done this, go to your CIS portal, go to Campus Alert, and make sure that we have at least your cell phone. You can also add a significant other to that list, and a lot of times students will provide a parent or guardian to that list as well. All of our campus alerts will come out titled U of U Alert. That way you know that the emergency is coming from the University of Utah. Some years ago, we had a parent contact us and say, what university is having this emergency? That's why we changed our protocol, because they had 3 children going to 3 different universities. So that was an important change that we thought was really important. The other piece that you'll get in all of our text alerts is a URL. And that URL will always say alert.utah.edu. Let me tell you why that is important. When we send out a campus alert, we have basically 100 characters to be able to provide you with who, what, why, where, when, and then protective actions that you need to take based on the emergency. We cannot do that in 100 characters. So what you will get is you will get a very brief description of the emergency, and then you'll be able to click on that URL. It will be provided in the alert, and that will take you to our alert.utah.edu page, and in that page is where we're going to get into a lot more detail about the event and how it unfolds, and it'll always roll in chronological order. We will also try to provide you with updates every 20 to 30 minutes about how the event is progressing and what you need to do. And it could be anything from stay where you are, avoid a particular area, or several types of protective actions that you ought to be taken because of that event. So be prepared to see that. You'll also get this information in email, but email is not a very good emergency alert tool because it can take hours for an email to make it through the multiple servers that we have here on campus. We send it anyway so that we have another way of communicating with you, but please don't rely on email as your emergency alert tool. We also produce our messages to Facebook and Twitter. So if you have the campus Facebook and Twitter accounts, and you've linked to them or liked them in your specific Facebook or Twitter account, you will get the same kind of messaging that you get via text. And then we also have a CAP feature in our system that visitors can use. They can download our U Heads Up app, and visitors, neighbors around campus that are not members of the university community, that don't have a UNID, can get our campus alerts through that app. So I will show you the U Heads Up app here quickly because it's important for you to have on your phone, and there are steps that you need to take in order to download it. I apologize that it's not the traditional really easy way to download an app and then just it magically appears and works. You have to do a couple of steps. You have to establish a username and a password, and then once you get the app, you have to download the plans that are available to you. There will be basically 2 plans available: the Emergency Response Guide and the See Something, Say Something. So basically, the Emergency Response Guide is this flip chart that you were able to see when you first came in and signed up and registered for the class. It's really a guide, if this, then that, okay? So you can take a look at it, and you can open up earthquake, and you can read, if the ground starts to shake, what do I do? Right? I drop, cover, and hold on. I would suggest that you know that before the ground shakes, just as a piece of information. We will not be sending you an emergency alert that we're having an earthquake. The earthquake will be your key, okay? So this flip chart is available to you to put in your classroom or your office spaces. But remember, you have it downloaded in your phone if you take this quick tutorial. And once you have it, it's a static plan in your phone. You don't need access to the web in order to get the information. It's there. It will update occasionally as we provide updated information. You don't have to worry about it other than accept the changes, right? So that's a electronic way to be able to have this resource handy to you. If you watch the video, it'll walk you through each of the steps for the emergency response guide. The third piece that I want to take you to is the actual emergency response guide on the web. So you have it in paper form, great little magnets that stick to anything metal. You have it in You Heads Up, which is on your device, but you can also get to it via the web through our web portal, and basically you click on any one of these particular emergencies and it will give you the if this then that, right? And again, some of it is pretty obvious and we've all been taught a lot of these things, but for example, you're walking down the hall, you see a suspicious package, what do? Right? It's really nice to have kind of a checklist that you can say, oh, these are the things that I ought to be doing, here are the people I need to be calling, and this is the information that they're going to be asking for. So, kind of handy tools that will help you in just about any kind of an emergency that we have here on campus. Are there any questions about those three pieces? Great, you're an awesome class, making it really easy for me. So let's get into the presentation, okay? The clicker. So let me talk about the big three protective actions. This is important because I want you to know definitions of protective actions that we will send you so that you understand what kinds of things you need to be doing, because remember, I've only got 100 characters to communicate what I need you to do, okay? What I need you to lead your class or your workmates in doing, okay? So we call them the big three because generally this is going to cover most of the events, the emergency events that we will have here on campus. And then, of course, as we get further into the emergency, you'll get more details about additional protective actions that you need to take. But the first one that I want to talk about is evacuation, right? You've been doing evacuation drills for most of your life. You've done it through elementary, junior high, and high school. We also do it at work. Okay? It's important that you know how to evacuate, where it is you're supposed to go, and how you can be accountable to others so that we know everyone's safe, or we have situational awareness about what our problems are throughout campus. So what you're looking at here is you are looking at a map for Gardner Commons. So every building on campus has an emergency response coordinator. That coordinator is responsible for building a plan. We provide a template to build that plan that walks through all of the protective actions, and they have a team of building captains or area captains that help them execute the plan. So for Gardner Commons, Teresa Pons, will you stand up, Teresa? Teresa is your emergency response coordinator for Gardner Commons, okay? She's in charge of the plan, she's responsible for the area captains, and she is the one that that has responsibility and leadership to make sure that we can execute a safe evacuation from this building. It works like this, and it's very similar across campus. So if you're in another building, this same general process is the way you should respond to an evacuation. So we have multiple floors in this building, okay? Each floor has people that are responsible for shepherding. Okay, let's get back to Brandon Daly. Brandon is the emergency response coordinator for Union. Okay, Union has the same plan, right? And they've broken up their facility into similar responsibilities where they've identified rooms and locations, and they've assigned them to specific emergency assembly points, some of which are shared with Gardner Commons. And this is a common theme throughout the university. You won't be the only building that are going to these particular emergency assembly points, right? But you need to be looking for your emergency response coordinator, who should be in a green vest and very visible, or an area captain that's been assigned the responsibility for accounting and communicating. What's unique about all of our emergency assembly points are we have district facilities management people with radios, tools, and training that go to these locations, and they are now able to communicate with the Emergency Operations Center, and we then begin to get situational awareness so that we can start driving emergency resources to where they're needed most, okay? It's really easy to send resources to a single location that's having an emergency. It becomes very difficult when multiple locations are having the same emergency. Resources will be finite, so what we have to do is determine where we're going to send them, and then where are we going to move people out of harm's way. We have 5 major reception centers pre-identified on campus. We're adding 2 more. For now, we have the stadium, the new Quinney Law Building, the Student Life Center, the library, and Eccles School of Business. We will soon bring online Gardner Commons, and we are working with the Warnock Building to add 1 more so that we've got more of a north building established. All of these buildings will have emergency food, water, and medical in them so that we can resupply you when you run out of your emergency supplies. And we'll also be able to relocate you to those locations so that when we have that event, we can effectively get you off campus and get you home as quickly as we possibly can. Our goal is to have campus cleared except for first responders and essential personnel to the emergency within 24 hours. It's a very lofty goal, but the plan is you have some supplies, you have some knowledge about how to take care of yourself. We'll work on getting you into specific locations, and then we have a transportation plan to start getting you back out to your communities, okay? So 24 hours is our goal to get you back home, and then you can manage your emergency at home, and we'll do what we can to get the university back up and into normal. Any questions on Union? So if you do, you can contact Brandon. Gardner Commons, you can contact Teresa, and they will help you answer any questions based on what they want you to do and what your responsibilities are, okay? All right, so let's talk about the second piece of protective action that I want you to know about, and that is secure in place. Secure in place is probably our most intense protective action that we're going to communicate to you. If we give you a secure in place protective action, something serious has occurred on campus, first responders are en route, and you need to follow the steps and requirements for this kind of action, okay? So let's go through them a little bit. First thing is lock and barricade doors. Now, let's talk about barricading doors here for just a minute. If you have something going on inside Gardner Commons, and Jesse, our officer from UPD, is going to talk about this. If you have something going on in Gardner Commons, in other words, I think I just heard gunshots. It is gunshots. You treat it as gunshots. You don't debate whether or not it's gunshots. It is gunshots. Okay? Are we clear? Everybody's clear. Don't debate it. Treat it as such. Okay? Jesse will get into some more detail about what you do, but if I hear gunshots and I can't run or get out of this building and I have to hide, okay, I am locking my door, I am barricading my door, and I am doing everything I can to protect myself and those that are around me, okay? The same situation occurring, say, at Quinny Law is significantly distanced from Gardner Commons, okay? If I get a protective action that active shooter at Quinny Law, I'm locking doors, okay? But I'm probably not barricading doors. Does that make sense? Okay? So you have to use a little bit of judgment with that. Okay? You have to use a little bit of judgment. Turn off the lights. Make it dark. Be quiet. Silence your cell phones. Don't turn them off, but silence them. In addition, don't assume that somebody else has called 911. You can text to 911, you can call to 911, you can call 911 and just leave it on. Okay? And let the dispatcher hear, because that dispatcher is going to communicate to first responders what she's hearing. Okay? So don't assume that 911 has been called. Call. Okay? And be quiet and stay away from windows, right? Stay away from doors. Don't congregate, and follow the messages that you get from Campus Alert. We will keep you updated, and we will keep you informed. And we may not be able to give you new information, but we will repeat the last protective action if we don't have additional information. Okay? Wait for the all clear. Once we get the all clear, then we can go back to either regular business or we will communicate what it is we want you to do. Okay? So secure in place. That's something that is occurring that is a violent act, active shooter, some kind of immediate threat that is going on, and we don't want you out and about. We want you to take protective action to secure yourself. Now, the difference that we have with a shelter in place from a secure in place is a shelter in place is more related to a weather event, might be a gas leak somewhere on campus, and we don't want to evacuate everybody at the same time, because with 60,000 people on campus during the day, if we have a mass evacuation, all we've done is taken an emergency event and created another emergency in the event. So we want to go through a systematic way of getting people off campus if we have something like that. So we would call for a shelter in place and then process you out in an organized, orderly fashion. Or we might wait till the snowstorm's over and then release campus once things have calmed down. So what do? I find shelter. If I'm outside, get inside. Okay? Stay away from windows and doors. We've had a tornado here before. Tornado coming through campus. It's going to blow out windows. Windows have glass. Glass injures, right? So stay away from doors and windows. Follow the instructions of Campus Alert. Again, we're going to keep information flowing to you. And then wait till we give you an all clear and provide you with instructions after that. Okay? So that's the end of my piece for a moment. I'm going to ask Officer Buchanan to come up and talk to you more specifically about active shooter, but before he leaves, I've got a question, it looks like.
So, with the shelter in place, I think one of the things that feels a little cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
Is that if something's happening all the way up in, like, Fort Douglas,
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like we need to really shelter in place, right?
Okay.
And so perhaps you can give us some sense of how to think about this in a bigger picture. I get the whole if everybody does this sort of mass evacuation, you're just creating a secondary problem that could actually be,
Mm-hmm.
the initial problem, right? So I get that, and that's super important. But that sense, like, if we have to communicate this to our students, we need to communicate this to others. Can you give us some sense, some like way of thinking about this, so that if we're, down at a park building, but something's happening way over there on Fort Douglas, what's the relationship and how should we be thinking?
Okay, great.
So that we are better able to
Sure,
communicate
sure.
others why we need to do what we need to do.
Great question. Okay. So here's the challenge that I have as an emergency manager trying to communicate to 85,000 people that are part of Campus Alert. It's mass communication, which means it's gross communication. I don't necessarily have the ability in the early parts of the emergency to pinpoint a location and only tell that location. And as soon as I'm getting more situational awareness from police, fire, emergency response coordinators, however that situational awareness is coming in, we'll pretty quickly start to move from, okay, this problem's located at the dorms, student housing. It's really not impacting anything west of Mario Capecchi. So everything west of Mario Capecchi, you're okay and you're not under the protective action any longer. Where we can then do notification by location, and we can tell people up in housing, HRE, we need you folks to remain in place. We have heavy police activity, or we've got a high temp line broken, and we've got facilities working on it, and we don't want anybody in the area, right? So as soon as we start getting that situational awareness, we'll start delivering out that information. A good example of that is when we had the homicide up Redview Canyon with Chen Wei. Initially, we sent out a secure in place order for all of campus. Once police felt like they had the suspect corralled and in a perimeter, we released the west end of campus and we kept HRE in a secure in place. Right? And then if you didn't have anywhere to go, we opened up the Marriott Library as a shelter for you to go to until we could get you into your student housing. So it takes time to get that information. Furthermore, I think it's important to tell you that a campus alert, although it's your most accurate information, it takes time to get the accurate information. So if there is an active shooter that occurs, it might occur for 2 minutes before dispatch is being able to send out that we've got an active shooter, right? If we have a sexual assault on campus, the police have to respond, they have to interview the witness, they have to get an understanding of what happened, and then they will communicate to us and say, we've had this occur, we need to warn people about the who, what, why, where, when, and that could take 30, 40 minutes to get that information, right? So you just need to be aware that all of these incidents will take some time, which is why it's so important for you to know and understand the emergency response guide, the protective actions that you need to take, because you will be on your own for a period of time. People are coming, but you will be on your own for a period of time. Yeah.
But then also perhaps not to panic.
Yes, absolutely.
And it may not be an imminent crisis for you in the near vicinity, but it could be elsewhere, and that folks just really need to chill.
Yep.
Just follow instructions. Because I think again, there's so much fear.
Yes.
And energy around all of this.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep.
That I think folks go immediately to panic.
Yeah.
And then everything becomes, the shooter's right outside my door, when they aren't necessarily.
And-
So, I guess part of my question is also about
So if I'm you, and I'm in a classroom and we get a campus alert, and that campus alert says, secure in place, there's an active shooter at the park building, okay? I think you got to take it serious, and I think you got to secure in place, right? But you need to let people know, listen, this is at the park building. We're locking our doors, or we're going to get away, or we're going to get off campus, right? You have to kind of direct that a little bit and use all of your senses in a reasonable way, because it's far different that an active shooter is coming down this hall versus the active shooter is in a different location. So yeah, you've got to, I think, arming you with this knowledge, right? Using your good senses, having some awareness of what you can do, I think, can help provide some calm in a chaotic environment. I can't answer all of the questions for every scenario, right? In every scenario, you're gonna have to kind of walk through, and what am I going to do, right? So if there's an active shooter and that active shooter is down at the park building, I'm either staying and locking down or I'm getting off campus. That's what I'm doing, right? Well, I won't be because I'm managing the EOC, but that's what you should be doing. Right. Did that help? Okay, good. Okay, Jesse.
Oh, thank you. That was clicker. Thank you. Sounds loud. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. I've always thought my plan A is just whatever Jeff's doing, I'm just going to be right behind him. So if that's any comfort, when you see him, you just follow him. I appreciate Jeff. He's very polished and he's very eloquent, and I don't appreciate following him because I'm not a presenter that became a police officer. I'm a police officer that became a presenter. So take it for what it's worth. But I do get the opportunity to go and speak to a lot of different groups on campus, and it's something that I do enjoy very much. If I can reference the question you asked, the questions, because I think they're really good, and as we were talking, and as you were speaking and Jeff speaking, my mind was swirling. Because I mean, there's things I say, and there's things I believe, but you know, you made me think about some things, which I've already thought of, but it reminded me. So I hesitate, how do I say this? It's always dangerous to use the words always and never, right? Let's see what I did there. And so as I speak, I'm always cognizant of what I say, because I realize, just as you're experts in your fields, I guess I'm an expert in my field, and so you look to me for advice and for guidance, which you should. I think I'm pretty sound in the things I tell you. But again, say that with the caveat that I firmly believe, and I don't mean this sarcastically, is you have sixth sense and you have intuition. And so if I received a text alert, I'm basing on that Jeff has the most accurate information available at the time, and he usually knows more than you do and more than I do because he's getting a lot of information. That being said, it is the best advice. It's the best practice. However, because he's not where you are and doesn't know exactly what you know and see exactly what you see and hear exactly what you hear, you may have a difference of opinion, or you may see something that allows you to make a more informed decision. And so I guess I'm pointing that out, and I don't really want to speak for Jeff, but if it's something contrary to that, like if you see an opportunity to get out, even though it says shelter in place, like I would get out. And I say that too with the things that I'm going to talk a little bit about. There are, do you know, Jeff, 300 and something buildings on campus. 500? Oh, okay. I said or something. there's 500 buildings on campus. 500 and something there. I mean, there are a lot. And so as I do presentations, a lot of times people ask me the specificities. Sorry about that. Specificities of their particular building or their particular situation. And you know, I have presentations, or I have time, and I also throw that out that if in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a long time, but if you ever would like to pick my brain or speak to me, I'd be glad to give you my contact information, and I can come and spend as much time as we need. But instead of getting really specific about individual buildings, the things I talk about are more broad and more general and then I would say that you tailor them to your current situation or where you're at. Because also, I'm not just talking about here on campus. Obviously, that's my first interest is your safety here on campus. But the things I talk about relate to your homes, relate to when you're at the supermarket, when you're at church, when you're at the movie theater. So I didn't mean to hem and haw about that, except to say that I'm going to speak more in generalities. And then if you have specifics, we can talk a little bit about those. But if you have even more specifics than that, I will give you my number. You can just call me and we can talk as long as we need. So just to point out, I realize that most of you are familiar with these numbers. In fact, Jeff mentioned them, but oh, for Pete's sake, sorry. I think it's a robocall. I think it really was. 911 obviously works here the same as everywhere else. And I'm glad Jeff pointed out, because something I learned within the last 6 months is you can text 911 here at the University of Utah campus. It's not universal to every police department, in every city, in every state, but here we do have the technology to do that. If it's not an emergency, if you have a generic question, if you need to get a hold of us for any reason, the non-emergency number is 585-2677. It goes to the same dispatch center, but the 911 calls actually take priority over the other one. And from a landline, it's 5 cops. So Jeff mentioned the secure in place, shelter in place. So this get out, hide out, take out, really I think more applies to secure in place. So specifically, this I take it from the active shooter presentation that I give. So I'm going to speak to this in reference, I guess, of if there were an active shooter event. So I tell my wife, I tell my children, and I'm telling you, if there is an event such as an active shooter, plan A, and again, I'm not going to say always and never, because you're going to have to make the decision, but plan A is get out. If you hear something like, as Jeff mentioned, that you perceive as gunshots, as he was talking, it was one of the things I was thinking about when he said they are gunshots. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but you treat it as such. And then it reminded me when something you said, and you didn't ask this specifically, but I made that thought how do I treat it as such? What does that mean? Do I, throw my papers in the air and start running? I don't know, except to say what you shouldn't do is to be very casual about it and say, well, that was odd. I don't, and just go back to what you're doing. I would suggest as a first step is to go and to get a little bit more information. For example, if I heard something that I thought sounded like gunshots out there, you wander to the door and look down the hall. You look around, because I think you're going to be able to gauge a lot more. There are people running, there are people screaming, there's someone that looks dangerous. And at that point, you can make probably a lot more informed decision. Versus, I go out and I see somebody with a jackhammer, they're doing construction, and obviously that's where the sound came from. I can relax. So if you have the chance to get out, get out. Get out. Something that is really worth considering, that I implore you to be better at, and I am always trying to be better at this too, is, like I said, this doesn't just translate to where you work, but everywhere you go. I know it's the old cliche, we sit with our backs to the wall and we're hypervigilant, but there is a lot of truth to that. I mean, I don't live my life paranoid, I don't obsess about these things, but anywhere I go, I guess through the business I'm in, I kind of condition myself that I always think, if I had to get out right now, where would I go? If I had to leave, if somebody came through that door with a gun, where would I go? Because most of us don't think about it, and so where we go is automatically where we came in, right? And that may not be that may be a good exit, but it may not. So I always think about it. There's a window there. I mean, this room, there's not a lot of places to go. I know there's a door there. One thing I might encourage you is, because I don't know how many of you know, I don't, whether that door's locked or not, I don't know. One thing you might do, and you may seem odd, is when you come in, you just look around and, okay, there's a window there and there's a door there, and you may check the door handle and tug on it. It's unlocked. I know that. So if I had to escape, I know I could go through there. I really want you to think about it, or I encourage you to do this when you go, like I said, when you go to the grocery store, when you go to a movie theater, when you go to a park, when you go anywhere. It's just, if I had to get out right now, where would I go? Sometimes a lot of offices are on the second story or the third story. Well, I mean, windows are a very practical option, but then you think, how would I get out that window? Do I have anything to break this window? Well, I don't. Well, I need to, but I don't. So there's a quote that I heard years ago, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but I say it often, and it said, when the time for decision arrives, the time for preparation is past. Meaning, if something bad were to happen and now it's time to implement a plan, it's too late to make the plan, right? It's time to implement it. And so, if you have if you're on the second story or third story, you know, a jump out that window is completely survivable. It's fairly realistic, but you know, do you have a way to get out the window if you needed to? And again, I think it's awful that I'm even breaching this topic. It's awful that I'm even talking to you today about jumping out of windows. But you know, as Jeff pointed out, active shooting in the United States of America is I keep hoping it goes away, but it's just not going away. So, you know, your chances of being involved in an active shooting situation is extremely slim. You have a much better chance of being struck by lightning than you do in being involved in an active shooting event. That being said, we would be absolutely negligent if we didn't at least think about it and at least talk about it. So again, I semi-apologize for even having to talk about this here today, but we do. So if you have the opportunity to get out, get out. Doors are great. Windows are great. You know, I want you to walk around your building where you work, because you probably you do spend more time here than anywhere else. Where does that hallway go? Where do those stairs go? Is this closet normally unlocked? Could I get in there if I had to? You know, I want you to think about these things. And if you know, great, go find even other places. I always do it. I tug on doors and look in buildings. And again, not suggesting you go to, you know, restricted areas in Walmart or wherever you are, but it's not a bad idea to say, you know, the back of the store, like, where do these double doors go? There's an exit there. I know I can get out there if I had to, and that would be where I would tell my kids, go. So be more aware than you are. I'm not saying you're not aware, but be more aware, because you could always be more aware. I can always be more aware, and I'm always working on it. So Jeff did talk about hideout. So if plan A, for whatever reason, is not feasible, there's only one egress, and it's unsafe, or I'm on the 5th story and I just can't jump out that window. That's not safe. The next step is to hide out. Now, most active shooter events, are they long drawn out, or are they pretty quick? You know? Pretty quick. Why are they quick? You're right, they are quick. Why are they quick? Anybody have a thought on that? Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why they're usually quick. Because when somebody comes into a building and starts hurting people, people usually call 911, right? And police, fire, whomever starts coming. I am coming. I'm coming quickly. And the person that's there shooting people or harming people knows that I'm coming quickly. So I think I'm safe to use that pronoun, probably he or she, knows I'm coming, and so he's trying to harm as many people as quickly as possible because I'm going to be there. And so I don't say this callously at all, because I can't imagine being in there. That 3 minutes to 5 minutes would seem like an eternity, and I imagine would be very, very terrifying. But generally, they're 1 to 5 minutes, and that's pretty quick. And so the hideout, the idea behind this is to buy yourself 3 to 5 minutes of time until first responders can get there and they can address the situation. So again, this is where we could go into every possible office and every possible building on campus, and I just don't have time to do it. But some generalities that are good for hiding out is that, and again, I don't mean to repeat what Jeff already said, but it bears repeating, is that if you can get behind a desk, if you can get in a closet or in a cupboard, which again, prior to this happening, you've already assessed, like, that cupboard's big enough to fit me and I could just shove some stuff out and get in, because I've already thought of this several times. I think about it every day. If you can get in a cupboard, if you can get behind a cabinet, if you can get behind your desk, obviously the first step is to lock a door if a door have locks. Many doors on campus don't have locks. They don't have deadbolts. They don't have some type of lock. One thing that's good to think about, so sorry, I'm going to make you turn around. You don't have to, but the door lock, the door back there has a hydraulic hinge at the top. They're very common, and it's pretty universal, at least here on campus. The hinge is shaped, it's metal, and it's shaped like a V, right? And as the door closes, the V gets smaller, and as the door opens, the V spreads out. So one thing you can do, it's impromptu, but it can be done, is you can take a belt or a power cord or a cable or an extension cord. And when the door is closed, obviously, you can wrap it around that V as tightly as possible, the wider part, as tightly as possible. If you have a belt, wrap it around once, cinch it and pull it through. If you have a cable, wrap it as many times as you can and pull it through and cinch it tightly. It'll make it so that V doesn't spread. Obviously, as the V doesn't spread, the door is not able to open. Now, it's not a foolproof way. I suppose if somebody went and got a crowbar and spent enough time, they could force that door open. But like I said, in active shooting events, we don't see where somebody goes and gets a crowbar and axe and spends 5 minutes trying to get that door down. Generally, that just doesn't happen because they don't have that time. So if you can frustrate somebody from getting into where you're at, even for 3 to 5 minutes, that's the idea, is to make it difficult to find you. They'll move on, and if everybody's doing that and they're moving on, that's the goal, right? You're giving me time to get there and to address that situation. I realize, Gardner Commons is an absolutely beautiful building. The aesthetics are great. I've spoken to actually one of the architects whose firm designed this building because I had some questions, and I don't have all the answers except to say, there's really a lot of idea. It's kind of the concept of the day of just open flow and open access, and there's a lot of inspiration drawn from it, natural light, and it's absolutely gorgeous. One of the most gorgeous buildings we have on campus. But there's always concern. Well, glass doesn't stop bullets, Glass, what do we do? And I get that. I can say is if you have a glass office, or you're completely enclosed in glass, there's just not, I don't have an easy answer for that. Except to say, still, some of these practices you can implement. You can turn off lights and silence cell phones and get behind a desk or a cabinet or a cupboard. I realize that a lot of desks now I've seen that they almost like these tables where they don't go down to the ground. Perhaps you speak to your supervisor or you take it upon yourselves to get some sort of skirt or something to, obscure you being behind there. I know that doesn't stop bullets per se, but, if you can get the person to move on, not realize you're there, not think you're there, move on, you've bought yourself time. Like Jeff mentioned, barricading. If you have an inward swinging door and you can push heavy stuff in front of it, it wouldn't be out of the realm of thought to take every single table in here and push them all up against the door. Because again, most active shooters aren't going to spend 3 minutes peeling 25 tables out of the way so they can get in that room. They just don't have the time to do it. So again, the possibilities are limitless, and it's the challenge that I give you is to just entertain some of these thoughts. And then I'm sorry to even have to ask you to do that, but you do. Think about it. Think about it before you go to bed. Role play. Go through it in your mind. And you mentioned, ma'am, something you said about panic and chaos. Of course. I'm a police officer. I do this all the time. I don't mean active shooting per se, but I did deal with this. I dwell with it. But I still get in stressful situations. It's hard to know how we're going to react when we're in stressful situations because we can't realistically create an active shooter event with real bullets and real guns, and we wouldn't do that, right? I've never been in an active shooting event. I haven't. I've never shot anybody, and I hope to never shoot anybody. But I will tell you something that I've done, that I do, is that I've been through that scenario in my mind dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Again, I don't obsess in it. I don't dwell in it, but I have done as much as I possibly can do to prepare myself for that event. I think about it. I role play. If I'm in this room and someone comes through, what would I do? How would I do it? You can do that too. You can visualize yourself in your office and you hear gunshots. What would I do? Where would I go? It really is, I think that obviously there's still going to be some panic. There's still going to be some confusion. But the more you do it in your mind, the better prepared you'll be if you had to implement it in a real situation. So plan C. I know this is intimidating to even think about. But if we were in this room and before we turned off all the lights and silenced the cell phone, I would say, you, and you, if this person comes through this door, you are going to pick up anything and everything heavy that you've got, and you are going to throw it at this person. And then you, and you are going to be close enough that as soon as that happens, you're going to tackle this person. And when you tackle him or her, you are going to not be kind, right? You are going to kick, scratch, bite, punch, do anything and everything you can to stop them from harming other people. Again, the thought of this is pretty intimidating. I'm a police officer, but I really wouldn't want to fight somebody with a weapon, with a gun, right? Even, well, whether I had a gun or didn't have a gun. I mean, the fact that if I didn't have a gun, it'd be even a lot more intimidating. So again, I know that concept is very scary to think about. Like, why would I want to tackle a guy with a gun? I get it, but I guess the alternative is we just sit here and we hope we don't get shot. And I'm not making light of that. I'm not saying that in any kind of funny way. But I mean, if that's your choice, obviously you have that choice. But I would implore you to do everything and anything you can. I don't think it's in here, but in the active shooter presentation, I have slides that break down how active shootings end. And something that I would have never in a million years guessed is that 13.1% of the time, this is a statistic from the FBI, 13.1% of the time active shootings are ended by unarmed civilians interceding and stopping that from happening. 13.1% of the time. I mean, that numbers are humongous. I would have never guessed. But I think if that doesn't give you any kind of inspiration or some resolve, I don't know what would. So also, this is where I encourage you to give yourself permission today that if you were called to do this, that you would do it, and you would be the meanest, nastiest person that ever lived until that situation was over. And because you can survive it. You absolutely can. The statistics say you can, and it happens. So, again, I don't mean to, I hope that, I'm certainly, I'm here for questions, and I will answer any questions you have, except to say that I hesitate to get too specific because we could spend all day, which I absolutely will, just not here, just not now, but I'll give you my contact information if you want to speak to me. I come down and look at your office. We can walk through your building. I'd be glad to do it. The last thing that I will ask of you is that, our police department's got 40 police officers, give or take. So that's 80 eyes, 80 ears. However, you combine it with the employees, faculty, with students, I mean, those are thousands of sets of eyes, thousands of sets of ears. And we really do. I appreciate every one of you in this room. I appreciate what you do more than you'll ever know. But I need you. I need you to help me to see if something looks odd, if something smells strange, if something seems suspicious, if somebody seems out of sorts and it's troubling you, if somebody looks dangerous or something looks dangerous, please call us. Please call us. That's what we do. That's what you pay me to do. It's what our police department is here for. We can't check something out if we don't know about it. So if you see anything that you need my help for, please call. There's nothing that's too small. There's nothing too trivial. If you feel like you need help, you call us, whether it's 911 or the non-emergency number, and we will come. I'm glad to give you my cell phone number if you want it. I'm glad to give you my email information if you want it. Okay. So that's in a nutshell the presentation I have to give. I appreciate your time. Are there any questions about that? Yes. No, you're okay.
We had a faculty retreat yesterday, so all of these questions
No, you're good. I think you're great.
are part of the discussions that we have. And one of them is that, perhaps you could just unpack a little bit more about what constitutes suspicious. Recently there's, in Detroit, a white woman calls the cops on a black man who's standing across the street from her, right?
Yeah.
So we know that racism and profiling and all of that plays a role in what constitutes safety and suspicion.
Yeah.
And, being black in America these days makes you suspicious.
Yeah.
These days, it's been for a long time, so let's just not be historical. But that's the reality that we live in.
Yeah.
And so the anti-Muslim racism that we have. So I just would love for us to have a conversation a little bit more about what constitutes suspicious.
Sure.
So that we're not reproducing the same kinds of traumatic racism that is already all around us as well. Right?
Yes. Yes. That's a really good question. I'm kind of laughing because there's not a short answer for that. But although I'm very passionate, like you said, about what you said, let me start out by telling you this. Let me tell you what I can't do. I don't have the luxury of me as a police officer. I don't have the luxury of ignoring a phone call. No, I'm not saying you were suggesting. I'm just telling you. So if you called and said, "Hey, Jesse, there are a lot of flies in my office, and I just need you to come check it out." I may perceive that as dumb. I may perceive that as not a police matter. But I don't have the luxury of just saying, well, I'm not going to go to that. I just can't. I just can't do it. Because if I ignored it and you were to be harmed somehow, right? And it's just, I'm not really being I'm being deficient in my job, to be honest with you. So pretty much anything we get called on, we go. Now that your question, I mean, we get calls often where somebody will say, and I also hesitate to say, don't really call us about flies in your office, because I don't want to put into your mind, like, maybe I shouldn't call this guy, and you maybe really need my help, right? That box is suspicious, but I don't want to bother Jesse because he said, like, that's dumb, like, I'm not going to call. And so then you don't call, and it turns out to be something harmful, right? When you should have. So I would tell you, if you have flies in your office, you can call me. If you have anything where you perceive or anyone perceives as suspicious, you can call. And I not only have to come, but I feel very strongly, morally, and ethically that I should come, because that's my job. That's what your taxes pay my salary for. But that being said, too, I have had calls right here at the good old University of Utah where somebody said, well, complainant said that there's a homeless man walking down the street. And, and I say, like, it's not against the law to be homeless. It's not against the law to walk down the street. So why are you calling? But again, I go. But I've had calls. I've been a police officer 17 years, and I've had calls where somebody said, complainant said, person of a particular race, you insert race here, is walking down the street. Looks suspicious. And then I think, can you tell me more? What were they doing? Well, they're walking down the street, like I said. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, yeah, like, this is absolutely insane. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not even going to dignify this with me going. But I don't have the luxury of not, because something bad were to happen, right? Despite what you see in the movies, we don't go everywhere with our lights on and our sirens on. I know every movie you've ever seen, that's how we go everywhere. We don't do that. Something as simple as I've driven down the street, driven past somebody and said, they look fine, I'm good, we're done. Or I've stopped and say, hey, how are you? Great. Is everything good? Yep. Okay, have a great day. And that's it. So I don't know if I really answered your question except to say this. If you call, I will come. If you call, we will come. Not only do we have to, but ethically we should. And I feel very strongly about that. I'm also smart enough to know that not everybody of, again, insert race or religion or sexual identity is a bad person just because they're that particular race or religion or ethnic identity. So I think that, I don't like going on that kind of call any more than you like to hear about it. But we do, and we try to treat it with the appropriate respect and dignity and kindness that any human being would expect from any other human being. So that's how I answer that question, that if you call, we will come, no matter how big or how small, and we will treat it appropriately. And I think most of us, anyone that's been a police officer more than 5 minutes, or anyone that's a decent human being, can suss out whether something merits, jumping out with guns or just being polite and kind, that's what I usually elect for. Thank you, though. I appreciate your question. If nothing else, I've spoken a lot, and thank you. I promise you I'll give you my name, and if you want my cell phone number, come get it from me, and I'll do anything I can to help you out, because I do work for you, and I feel really passionate about that. So thank you so much. Thanks, James.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? We're good? All right, perfect. So as Jeff mentioned, I'm James Barnes. I'm with our campus building access doors and security systems. In our department, we cover a couple of different areas. We cover not only the physical lock, so if you have a physical key to your building, our department keyed that lock, handed you that key, or your department had that key. We also install and manage and program any cameras that are currently on campus or being installed on campus. That's something that we're also aggressively expanding at this time too. And then we also manage the Secure program. Some of you may have been trained as a Secure operator or have access for Secure operators. When I mention Secure, what that is, it's card access. So wherever you see a door that has a reader, we were there. We installed it, we programmed it, or we partnered with a vendor to install it, and then we programmed it, and we also maintain it. In addition to that, some other tools that we also help manage that is also aggressively being expanded across campus are 2 additional tools that you have at your disposal in case of an emergency situation. They're 2 alarms or switches or buttons. The one on your left, that is called a panic button. I've got a physical one here, so that way I'll pass it around, you guys can play with it. To activate it, you push the button, it sends an alarm. To reset it, you have to have a physical key to turn it, and then the button's reset. So somebody has to come to you. It's not going to turn off. It's not going to automatically just disappear from the monitoring screen over at police dispatch. Somebody physically has to come to you in order to turn this off. The lockdown switch looks a little bit different. The lockdown switch, this little box right here, this little switch right here, very easy to activate. Once you pull that down, it activates. It sends that alarm. It'll lock down the doors. So I'm going to pass those around. Feel free to play with them, adjust them, reset them. Just don't lose my keys. Kenna Robinson in our department will be very upset with me, and she can be kind of scary sometimes. But I'm going to go in a little bit more detail about which each button does, kind of the differences between the two. We'll start with the panic buttons. Panic buttons, as you can see, they're that square little box. They're typically located either underneath a desk. Occasionally, they'll be on a wall. It just kind of depends on where your department felt that they needed to be installed. If you don't currently have one in your office, but you would like to have one in your office or classroom, you would reach out to us, and we'd be happy to walk you through kind of what it would take to get one installed there. But we can certainly do that. We are using a standard device. So no matter where you go on campus, if you're going up to the hospital, if you're going to the law building, if they have them in there, this is what they look like. Again, so that way you know what it does. We're at that standard gray box here. For this building, they typically aren't in the classrooms. There's a few that may have them, but you'll find them most often in office suites. And they're typically at that reception desk or that front desk in that office suite, so you know generally where they're going to be located. When you press the red button, it sends a silent alarm to police dispatch. What they will do from there is they will reach out to the closest police officer, say, hey, I've got a panic button that has been triggered, head to this location, and then they will also call your location. So they will call that desk where that panic button is located to try and get as much information out of you as possible, so that way they know what type of situation they're walking into. If you can't answer the phone, that's fine. They're still sending someone. If you can't answer the phone and provide that information, that's great. But regardless of the situation, they're going to send someone to provide that assistance. Now, when to use it, I like to say whenever you feel that your safety is at risk or the safety of those around you is at risk. So if somebody is in your office, they're starting to raise your voice, you're feeling uncomfortable, you think they might be a little aggressive, it could be a student, it could be an employee, it could be a visitor of the building. We have these panic alarms down at those daycares. It could be a parent that could be getting a little aggressive. If you feel that you need that backup support and you don't feel comfortable to pick up that phone and dial 911, you can push this button and they will send somebody to you. So whenever you feel that your safety is at risk, by all means, go for it. Again, it will send that silent alarm. It's not going to send off a strobe light. It's not going to send off an audible alarm that is going to alert the person that you may be interacting with, saying, hey, I just notified someone and they're coming to help me. We want to be as discreet as possible. So that's why they're typically also located under desks, so that way you can just kind of reach under there, press that button. Again, if you press that button, they are coming. You can be very confident in that. We're testing our panic buttons on a regular basis to ensure that they're working as well, so you can be very confident that they're working. Lockdown switches. Lockdown switches work for a lot of similar functions as the panic button. So the similar functions, it will send a notification to police dispatch, hey, somebody set off an alarm, we're going to send somebody to that location. So that notification goes to police dispatch. A couple of things that are a little bit different. When you flip that lockdown switch, it will lock the doors immediately in that vicinity. So for example, this room, you can see that we have a lockdown switch right here on this wall. If you throw that switch, it's going to lock this door over here, it's going to lock that door right there, and this divider, it's going to lock that door to that side as well, just because that divider could be open or closed. What it also does is it disables the card access, so that only police or security are able to come into that room. Now, an additional thing that you may be wondering, like, well, okay, if I flip that switch, can I get out? Absolutely. We will never stop egress. You will always be able to exit that room if you get that all clear, or if you get that evacuate notification, you will always be able to evacuate out. Now, if somebody's banging on that door and they don't look suspicious, they don't look threatening, you can always let them in. We're leaving that up to your judgment. You make that call. We're not going to make that call for you because we're probably going to be in a different building when those lockdown switches are flipped. But if you feel that it's okay to let that person in, by all means, you're more than welcome to do that. Again, similar to the panic button, even if you flip that switch back up, those doors will not unlock until police dispatch has given the all clear. On their monitoring station where they see that alarm pop up, they have to go in, they have to acknowledge it, they have to say, yep, everything's okay, and then the doors will unlock. As far as where they're typically located, again, depends on the building, depends on where you're at. As we are adding these to more and more buildings, typically if it's in a classroom, we'll always either put it near the podium, on the podium, or we will put it near the door itself. If it's an office suite, we'll typically, again, put it at that front desk location. If you want it somewhere else, if you want it in your personal office, we can certainly do that. Just know that you've got one there and you may need to activate it, but we can certainly do that. Now, as far as when to use it, if you get that secure in place, again, this is an additional tool at your disposal that you can use. It's not going to be in every building. It's something that is relatively new that we're starting to install across campuses based off of request. So it may be in some buildings. If you're coming into a classroom, if you're going into an office, I recommend just doing a quick scan, see if you've got that panic button, see if you've got that lockdown switch, so that way, in case of an emergency, you know where to go to be able to arm it. In addition, if you're aware of an immediate threat, you may be on that location, you may be on that site where before you get that secure in place, you may hear those gunshots or what you think may be those gunshots. Go ahead and flip that switch. And then, again, police will be coming. If you get that notification secure in place and it's happening down on the other end of campus, go ahead and flip that switch. You're more than welcome to use it. Police may not come as quickly because they may be responding to that event at that location, but they will come and make sure that everything is all clear. So you feel free to use it. If you want to use both switches, by all means, go for it. You're more than welcome to use. The only situation that I really recommend not using the lockdown switch is if your team decides to go to lunch and you need to lock the office. Police will come, and they'll be wondering, where are you? What's going on? Is everybody okay? So please don't use it if you're going to lunch and you just need to lock the doors. You can work with me or Becca, and we can help program those or set you up to be able to do that without sending an alarm to police dispatch. Are there any questions about how the lockdown switches or panic buttons work, or when to use them or when not to use them? Perfect. I believe my business card's on the back table, so if your department, if you don't currently have one, and if you'd like to install one, you can certainly email us, and we'd be happy to cover that and go through that process with you.
Thanks, James. All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Well, actually, we're a little bit over, so I'll be very brief on this last piece. I just want you to know that you've got some other tools that are available to you that we've installed here on campus. They are three. First, we have AEDs available should somebody experience a heart attack. They're very simple pieces of equipment to use. You can basically pull them out of the cabinet, you can open them up, and it will either instruct you through with a prompt card, or it will communicate to you through voice and a recording on how to put the diodes on a person and actually activate the defibrillator. Here in Gardner Commons, there's one on every floor, and they're about center of building. They're in white cabinets, very well marked. In addition to the defibrillator, inside the same cabinet, we have a Stop the Bleed kit. So if we have somebody that has had some kind of trauma, these bleed kits have packing gauze, tourniquets, chest seals that will help save somebody's life should they go through that kind of trauma. And your next presentation is going to go into further detail about how to stop the bleed. So I won't spend any more time on that. The last piece that I want to communicate to you is we have striker chairs on the top floors of both Gardner and Union. These chairs are designed and made for folks that are either wheelchair bound or need some kind of assistance because they can't get down the stairs themselves. They're basically a track type of system, like a tank, right? A tank, and you can strap an individual in that chair, and they're designed to be a one-person assist. Two is a little bit better, but a one-person assist, and they will wheel a person down a set of stairs, because if we have to evacuate and we can't use elevators, we've got to be able to get downstairs. So those tools are available to you. Right now, you can go to Environmental Health and Safety, and on their website, they have a video training for the AEDs and the striker chairs. We will be linking to that from our website as soon as Marketing Communications can make the switch for us. So they're very easy videos to watch. They don't take a lot of time, and it's in your best interest to view them. Teresa, anything else?
So the only two things that I have are just that we have the 72-hour kits that some of your departments have ordered. We were going to place that order last week, but are still waiting on a few other folks. So the examples are right here. We're getting them at the lowest price, so they're $44 each. If a department purchases it either for you or as a collective, it's tax exempt, but you do also have the option to purchase it for personal use. Just note that there will be tax included. Yeah, and then the last thing I have is just if you are interested in helping with emergency response in either the Union or Gardner Commons, please let Brandon and I know. We do our best to make great plans and make sure everybody's safe, but it's not like a two-person show. There's a lot of folks that need to be involved in this. So if you are interested, whether that be, you can just say, I can make sure my department gets out of our office, that is so helpful. Or if you're saying, you know what, I can help make sure a floor evacuates the building, that's super helpful too. So in whatever way you feel comfortable helping and you feel like you can, it is appreciated. So we'll be sure to send out our contact info and you can follow up with us with any questions or if you'd like to come out.
This is a photograph of the contents of the kit. Sorry that picture isn't showing up a little better. And then here are here's a list of the equipment that's inside. So if you want to look at it before you go, great, or you can go to the website and there's the information. So before I turn this over to Zach and Stop the Bleed, any questions about emergency communication, protective actions, the response guide, active shooter, locks? Great. Thank you for attending our training today. Hope it was valuable.